Presidential history is something that has always been quite fascinating to me. And if you look at, presidential politics today, you can see some similarities to, those of the past, and in some ways how it's different. So today, whenever somebody is running for president, they're barnstorming the country, they're giving speeches, they're holding rallies. Well, imagine a president or a presidential candidate who ran for president and never left their front porch. Well, that is how Benjamin Harrison, our 23rd president, did it. And we are in Indianapolis at his home. So today, we're going to be looking through the home of our 23rd president, Benjamin Harrison. All right, so just rolled in here into the Benjamin Harrison home, and I'm standing in the front foyer, and kind of excited to get in here and take a look around, because I found out that this presidential home is kind of unique. Like upwards of 80% of the furnishings in here are original to the home. Now, of course, I don't know everything there is to know about Benjamin Harrison or about Benjamin Harrison's home, but I'm with somebody who does. This is Daniel, and he is one of the historical interpreter. How would you describe yourself?
Technical title is the experience manager.
Experience manager.
I give a lot of tours here. Basically, teach the public about the legacy of Benjamin Harrison.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to go through the house and see what we can see. So right off the bat, whenever you come into the home, you're going to be looking at the front parlor. And they have a painting up here of Benjamin Harrison. Now, one thing that's nice about this home is that you can really walk into any room of the home, as the people who lived here would have been able to do, except for in this room. This one is roped off because the carpet is original to the time period. This was made in the 1860s. So this one's roped off, but we'll be able to go and look at any of the other rooms. All right, coming out of the foyer now, and holy smokes, look at this spiral staircase. How nice is that? And man, if you look at the craftsmanship that was put into making this hand railing, pretty impressive. We're going to cover the first floor first, and then we'll jump up to the second level in just a little bit. Okay, I'm now entering into the back parlor, which this would have been more of a family room. And my goodness, there are so many things here to see. I don't even know where to start. But Daniel told me that if I stand right here in this very spot, this is where Benjamin Harrison stood to accept the nomination for the Republican Party whenever he was running for president. So, I don't know, pretty cool to be standing where, some of these historic moments took place. Now, as I mentioned, most of the furniture in this house is original to the home. So this would have been Benjamin Harrison's own personal chair. You notice this one is a little bit slimmer. This would have been for his wife. And then just so many little details in this home. These are their original calling cards. How fascinating. Also here in the back parlor is a portrait of Benjamin Harrison's grandfather, William Henry Harrison, making Benjamin and William Henry Harrison the only grandfather-grandson pair of presidents that we've ever had. And of course, William Henry Harrison is probably best known for having the shortest term in office.
So this is the Regina Phone here. This is a very interesting piece, kind of right smack dab in the middle of two technologies. So you have a player piano, from your old Western style movies, and then a record player. So to kind of use layman's terms, underneath the Regina Phone, there's essentially a xylophone. It's got bristles on top of it, and then the breaks in the copper kind of let it know what notes to play. So just like a record player, you could really switch these out if you needed to. They would only last about 30 seconds, so you have to take that with some grain of salt. You will be getting up every 30 seconds, but we can quickly listen to one of the newer discs that we have.
That is cool as heck. I have never seen one of those.
Such an interesting piece of technology.
Yeah.
So we're coming on into the library, the office, the study, whatever you'd really like to call it. This is personally my favorite room because it was Benjamin Harrison's favorite room. So I'll have you pan over here. We have a series of portraits up on the wall. Benjamin Harrison really comes from a long line of really a political dynasty, so to say. So you have Benjamin Harrison the fifth up here. So he's an original signer of the Declaration of Independence. He's the first man to read the Declaration out loud. He also is representing Virginia in the Continental Congress along with George Washington. So he's actually signed, if you want to check this out, underneath Thomas Jefferson here. So you see Thomas Jefferson right there, and then below you see a very tiny Ben Harrison.
Oh. Huh.
His son over here, William Henry Harrison, who we talked a little bit about in the back parlor. So commanding general in the War of 1812. He's the Indiana territorial governor. So he really has the kind of the two pillars to be a great president, but of course dies about 31 days into office. Now you come over here to one of the most forgotten men, at least in terms of this political dynasty, and that's going to be Benjamin Harrison's father. This is John Scott Harrison. He does a couple terms in the Ohio State House of Representatives, but really spends most of his life as a farmer. So a lot of Benjamin Harrison's early money was actually sent back to North Bend, where he is originally from, to help support his family. Now here we have a beautiful bookcase here. The story behind this really is that Benjamin Harrison, he won an immigration case for a German immigrant. That person could not afford to pay him, but they did have a craft, and so they built him this to repay him for his service. So Benjamin Harrison was an incredibly successful lawyer. I would argue one of our most successful lawyer presidents. So if you knew you had many other cases coming down the line, I think this is a pretty good way to be repaid. Now you may wonder, over here, why do we have a portrait of Abraham Lincoln? So Benjamin Harrison was an ardent supporter of Lincoln. He left the Whig Party to become one of the first Republicans in the state, gave over 80 speeches to help Lincoln get elected. And that portrait is very special because that is actually what's set next to his casket when he was in the Indiana State House here. So he took kind of a tour back to Springfield to be buried after he was assassinated, and he did stop in Indianapolis. And so that was painted by Jacob Cox, a famous Indianapolis painter, and they kind of joke that the oil wasn't even dry before he arrived in Indianapolis.
Wow.
Another thing I'll bring you over is this. I mean, we have Benjamin Harrison himself saying this is one of the most important things he ever did. So he did serve in the Civil War, so he eventually became a brigadier general after the war. So he was promoted after the Civil War. And we have him saying, beyond being a senator, beyond being a great lawyer, even beyond being president, the most important thing Benjamin Harrison ever did was serve in the Civil War. So you can see that this is signed here by Abraham Lincoln in the bottom right-hand corner. This was also signed in March of 1865, and Abraham Lincoln would be assassinated in April of 1865.
Oh my gosh.
So I cannot tell you this is the last thing he signed, but I can certainly tell you it is one of.
That is incredible.
You'll also see the Secretary of War signed as well. And if you can, you may be able to see it. If you can see, Abraham Lincoln signed his full name. He very often wrote just A. Lincoln. So for him to sign his full name really kind of speaks to maybe the personal relationship that he and Benjamin Harrison had.
Wow. So here's another thing in this room that I just found fascinating. This desk right here is one that Benjamin Harrison used in the White House. Now, it's not the Resolute desk that was in like the main Oval Office. This would have been off in a side room. And then something else that came from the White House was this bookcase. And there are just all kinds of little things in here that you almost have to just come and see. Here's a gift that was given to Harrison from a gentleman in Texas. And of course, during the era, we've seen before that canes were really a big thing. So there's a lot of different handcrafted canes as well. Now, this deer right here was not shot by Benjamin Harrison. But, you know, I talk about Teddy Roosevelt quite a bit, him being my favorite president. Benjamin Harrison, also a conservation-minded president. I didn't know this before visiting here, but there were 3 parks that were formed under his presidency, including Yosemite and Sequoia National Park. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. So real quick, I want to point out here in the library, these are originals of the complete works of Charles Dickens that belonged to Harrison. And he was also, you know, a man of faith and an elder in the Presbyterian Church. Here are his Presbyterian Bibles. So Harrison, unlike many presidents, is widely regarded as being a real straightforward, honest man. And I'm sure his faith had much to do with that. All right, so now we're walking into the kitchen area where the meals would have been prepared. And something that was pointed out to me is they still have the original gas fixtures here in the home. But Benjamin Harrison was the first president to have electricity in the White House. But he was afraid to touch the switches because he thought he might be electrocuted. Here's something else that I really kind of found interesting, is they've got this well pump right here rigged up in the kitchen. So there would have been a cistern that would have supplied water directly to the kitchen area. So he was really kind of a forward-thinking guy. You know, his house being built in the 1870s and all. Very, very interesting. I'm hanging out in the butler's pantry right now, and you can see all of this china. A lot of this was painted by his wife, Caroline, which is kind of interesting. She was kind of a Renaissance woman. There's not as much known about her as what I think there really should be. But when you learn more about her, she was really something else. Yeah, this is interesting. All right, moving on now to the dining room.
So we are here in the dining room. So I want to show you a couple things around here. This is their original table and chairs here. So you would have had Benjamin down here on this end, Caroline down on this end. I can tell you, if you're wondering, the food is not real. I hear that asked quite often, but the food is not real. What is real, though, this is their original flatware around here. This is not their china that you see. It is wedding china from the time period, actually from someone from this North Delaware neighborhood in Indianapolis, but it is not their china. Something I always love to point out, because it really shows kind of the depth of the money that the Harrison family had, is this right here. This, believe it or not, is actually their pickle jar. So actual silver, crystal. It has little tongs here on the side. When you come and visit the Benjamin Harrison presidential site, if you take a tour with me, that's always something that I like to ask. But it really just goes to show the level of wealth they had. Another kind of thing that shows that is if you see their drapery hangs to the floor. That is a sign for their visitors or their guests that they have money. So they didn't need to cut the roll at a certain length. They could just buy the entire roll, and wherever it fell, it fell. And once again, that showed their guests that you were entering a very powerful and wealthy home.
Huh. Looking at some of the china here in the dining room right now, and this is Lincoln china right here. So this would have been in the Lincoln presidency. And Caroline decided to design her own china, which was something new. Kept the same style and kind of that same centerpiece that you see with the eagle, but gave it a little bit of a different flair and a little bit different colorations, but wanted to keep it the same as the style of the Lincoln china because of how highly Harrison thought of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, well that's the first level. Now this house actually has 3 levels, so we're going to go to the top and then kind of work our way back down, just going up this spiral staircase here. All right, I'm coming up here now on the 3rd floor. Now this would have been originally kind of like a ballroom area, and they use the space now for a rotating display. So right now the focus of the display is women's suffrage. So you can't just come here once. You can keep coming back, and there's always going to be something different. But what I found particularly interesting up here is all of this that you see is the original law office furniture that Benjamin Harrison used. And then that is the original sign for his law practice. I just can't get over all of the original presidential stuff that they have here in this home. We just made it up here to the 2nd floor, and here's a painting of Benjamin Harrison during his time in the Civil War. So this is one of the few images. This was painted from a photograph. One of the few images that we have of Harrison as a middle-aged man. Okay, so here on the 2nd level, entering now into Mary's room. Mary would have been one of the daughters of Benjamin Harrison, and yeah, you can just see all kinds of interesting things here, including this dress. Now, this is not a childhood dress. This would have been her adult dress, and then, of course, the bed that she would have slept in. Now, over here, this would have been kind of like a changing room, or like a giant walk-in closet. Here at the museum, they have it set up as a bit of a nursery. And here's what I really found interesting. This crib right here was the crib that Benjamin Harrison had as a baby. This is 187 years old. And this is the crib that his dad would have had. It's over 200 years old. And then this portrait right here is Benjamin Harrison's grandson, whose name was also Benjamin. It's the largest portrait in the house. Yeah, pretty cool. Correction, this is the 2nd largest portrait in the house. We're getting ready to see the largest. All right, moving now into the sitting room. And holy smokes, here is the largest portrait in the house. This is of Benjamin's wife, Caroline, who was also the first president of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And there are just all kinds of little interesting things, really throughout all of this whole house, but in this room as well. So here's this giant fan that was made out of ostrich feathers that was given to Caroline. Here is one of her paintings. So again, very, very artistic individual, and this is also her original easel. Now I mentioned how 80% of the stuff in the house is original to the house. This piece is not. This is actually a Dutch piece from the 1600s that was given to the Harrison home. So that's not original, but it is quite impressive. And then here's, of course, a picture of Benjamin Harrison with his grandson. Benjamin Harrison was the first president to pass an Endangered Species Act, so he was kind of an animal lover. Had some pets there at the White House. You can see in this picture they had a pet goat named Whiskers that would pull the grandkids around, and he also had a couple pet possums and some other animals there at the White House. Now, here's what I found most interesting in this room, and that's this right here. This is a letter that was written to Caroline from Helen Keller, and it is the first publicly published letter that Helen Keller ever wrote. And it says, "Dear Mrs. Harrison, please receive these sweet messengers of the South and let them speak to you in voices soft and low of the love and tender sympathy of a little unknown friend, Helen Keller." Huh. That is really something else. We've moved out of the sitting room and are now in the next room, which is Benjamin Harrison's bedroom. And here's a picture of Harrison as a young man. And something that I thought was pretty cool, if you go over here, apparently Harrison liked to stay fit. Got a little exercise gear right here. Got some dumbbells, got some war clubs, got some resistance bands. But really, the thing in this room that is the most interesting, at least to me, is this right here. In 1901, Benjamin Harrison came down with pneumonia and was laid up in this bed right here. And this is where he drew his final breath. Huh. All right, well, that was the Benjamin Harrison home. Now, one thing I do need to clarify, I found out that this porch right here that I mentioned in the beginning wasn't added until after Benjamin Harrison returned from his time as president, but he would have given his campaign speeches from right there at his front door on the steps that were coming down. I learned a lot here today, and really Benjamin Harrison is often regarded as like in the bottom half of our presidents, but for a guy who only served for 4 years, he accomplished a lot. There were 6 states that were added during his term: North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Washington. He pushed for civil rights legislation. He was forward-thinking on ecological issues, and unlike many presidents, was regarded as an honest man. So yeah, I don't think I would mind having another president like Benjamin Harrison. Now, we did mention that Harrison breathed his final breath right here in this home. He's also buried here in Indianapolis at a place called Crown Hill Cemetery, and we are going to head there right now. But if you're ever in Indianapolis, come to this place. You're going to see an original Victorian style home, the home of one of the presidents, and you're going to learn a lot. I really, really am glad that we stopped here today.